Hello F11 members and welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production video tutorials for issue 45, October 2015. Here you see a very familiar scene, one that I have photographed probably more times than I've had hot dinners, but I just can't resist it. And we were down running a mini workshop last weekend on the Jurassic Coast where I made this picture. The light this time of year was really nice on the arch there in the early evening, and quite a good sky as well, and I opted to make a black and white image out of it. I would have liked for more anger, more motion, not so much motion but more activity in the sea there. It was flat calm. Nevertheless, I think it's quite an interesting exercise to see how I got from this image on the left, the color image, to the black and white image. The one on the shot was on the left was shot with the big stopper filter. It's got a very blue cast, but what I'm going to do really is talk you through the whole process from start to finish. So let's get started, and if I just go back to where I started here at import and go back to the single image there, and the first thing I'm going to do is, I often do this when I'm considering a black and white conversion, is look at Lightroom's presets. Now I should say that when I was shooting this I very much had in mind to do a black and white image, and I think that's really the way to work, because black and white relies on shape, form, tone and texture, and the best black and white images are ones that have been conceived rather than just saying, oh well, the light's not very good, let's give it a go in black and white. You need just as good lighting for strong black and white images as you do for colour. But of course we're looking at different things. So what I'm going to do is come along to the black and white filter presets here that we have, and if I just move my cursor down in this preview window up here, it shows me the effect of each filter. And a lot of people, when they're doing black and white work, all they do is use these presets to give them the look they want. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. If I move on down, we have the different colored filters, and then down here various different looks, high, low contrast, look 1 and so forth. And of course you may well use Silver Effects dedicated black and white conversion software, which has many more presets. But what I'm going to do this time is actually select the red filter here and just see how that looks, and use that as my starting point. There's a red high contrast filter here, but I think that just burns out too many highlights, so I'm just going to select the red filter and use that as my starting point for this black and white image. So what's the next thing I do? Well, it's the same with virtually all images. I look at my black and white points, referring to the histogram here, and as we can see, the brightest tones in the images are not clipping, but they are right up against the shoulder of this right hand extreme of the histogram. But my black point needs some adjustment, and I'm going to actually hold down the Alt key and slide the black and white slider to the left until I start to see clipping, and I can go to minus about 20 without losing any precious black tonal information. I want to pull back my highlights. They're just a bit too bright here in the brightest part of the image, so I'm just going to come back on the highlights quite a way, actually, all the way back to about minus 76 there. Next thing I want to do is just come down here to the point curve and look at how I can use that to just essentially darken down the image. If I just pull it down to the left, I'm going to give the whole image a kind of look something like about that. Just put a bit of an S in there. That's just maybe a bit too much. It's tempting to go too rich there, and I think that's pretty strong as is. and already we've got an image that has a fair bit of impact there. But I'm now going to fine-tune the channel mixing. Now, by actually selecting this preset, Lightroom's done that for me to start with, but I want to fine-tune that. And if I go back to where I started here on the left, the dominant colors in the image are green in the vegetation, a sort of straw yellow tone, and of course blue in the water and the sky. Going back to where I am with it at the moment, I just want to fine-tune the greens in the image. So if I now slide the green slider to the left, just, well, I don't know how far back, what's happening is the areas of green vegetation are looking darker, and I'm getting better contrast in this corner and up here in the tops of the cliffs. So I'm going to go back to about -40 on the green slider there. Next thing I want to do is just maybe tweak the blue. Now there's a lot of blue in the image, and I can make it really dark if I want. I'm just going to be fairly restrained on that and go to about -18, and there the picture's looking quite strong. I'm going to come up now excuse me, and look at the clarity slider, which is a tool that I am deeply suspicious of when working in color, but I think in black and white it has its uses. If you look at, for example, at the actual arch of Durdle Door itself, as I dial in a bit of clarity, it just enhances the detail there. It's introducing local contrast, of course, and it's easy to overdo, but in black and white I think it works quite well. So I'm going to go with about +33 there. And now if I just look at the sky, I think the sky needs just a bit of contrast, and to achieve that I'm going to use the grad tool here. So if I now just hold down the shift key and put a bit of a grad in here, a fairly hard grad, and normally I use the grad tool for adjusting the density of a picture, of an area, typically a sky, but not always, i.e. its brightness. But in this particular case I'm going to use it for adjusting contrast, and if I'm going to come right on the contrast slider there to about, where? If I go too far, the edges start to look a bit too dark. I'm going to go to about 34 there. And now I just want to refine here. If I click on brush, I showed you this in a previous tutorial, and I click down here to show the selected mask overlay. The red bit is showing me where the grad is working. Now if I just hold down Alt now, I can just paint back on the mask overlay to make sure that it's not taking too much of effect on the landscape up on the left of that shoulder there. If I just adjust my bracket size using the square brackets key, again hold down Alt and just paint back that mask overlay there. This makes the gradient tool so useful. Okay, let's click on that and click on done. Last thing I need to do with the picture is of course sharpening, as always, and in this particular case I'm going to use again my sharpening preset here, sharpen scenic, and adjust a bit of masking. So if I hold down Alt and pull the masking to the right, the black is showing where sharpening is not being applied on the water and in the sky, and that's about right. And there is the picture, the final image. I'm quite pleased with that. Zoom in, shot on the 5D SR, so the amount of detail is absolutely incredible. Sometimes with black and white conversions, if you're too heavy-handed, it can introduce a sort of noisy grittiness to the adjustments, but this looks nicely toned. It's an image with impact. I'm quite pleased with that. And if we go back to where we started, there we have the beginning and the end, and I am pleased with that. So that's it. One black and white conversion. Everyone's different. We'll be back in part 2 to look at various issues that F11 members have raised regarding these post-production tutorials. Thank you.